Lake George Battlefield Moments, a production of the Lake George Battlefield Park Alliance, preserving our area's incredible history. A weekly feature on 93.5 FM and live streaming at lakefm.com. Here's the president of the Lake George Battlefield Park Alliance, John DiNuzzo.
Hi again, everyone. This is John DiNuzzo of the Lake George Battlefield Park Alliance. My guest is Jack Kelly, author of God Save Benedict Arnold, Valcour, Band of Giants, and other award-winning books on American history. Welcome, Jack.
Thank you, John. It's good to talk to you, and I could talk about Benedict Arnold all day.
We might take you up on that. We're going to have Jack on this week and next week again to talk about Benedict Arnold. Now, he's the subject of your most recent book and the hero of your previous book on the Battle of Valcour Island. What is it about Arnold that continues to fascinate both historians and the general public after 250 years?
I can certainly say what fascinates me about him is really the lesson in human nature that he embodies, the complexity, the paradoxical quality, and I think it's a lesson that is very important to learn in history, that people are not necessarily able to be analyzed by their surface, and there's a lot going on in everybody's mind. And Benedict Arnold is just a standout example of somebody who changed sides in the war and had a change of heart. But there were many others, and he certainly was not the only person who wavered or had second thoughts about his support of the war. And the other thing I would add is that Benedict Arnold is an enigmatic character, and he didn't leave behind a diary, he didn't leave behind much in the way of correspondence, and that has really left him a blank slate, and I think a lot of historians are attracted to him because of that blank slate, and it gives them room to speculate about what his motives were and what made him tick. So I think that's another reason that people are drawn to Benedict Arnold.
Tell us about the good guy, Benedict Arnold. Prior to his treason, what were some of the most shining moments of his time on the Patriot side?
Well, I have to say that the first thing that occurs to me is that the way that he embraced the cause from the beginning. The day after the news of Lexington and Concord arrived in New Haven, where he lived, he left behind a very successful business. He was one of the richest men in town. He left behind a young family, and he marched off to war. And there were a lot of people who were enthusiastic in those days in that early part of the war in 1775. But certainly Arnold's enthusiasm for the war and his love of the cause that he was fighting for, I think, is one of his outstanding characteristics early on. The next thing would probably be the capture of Fort Ticonderoga, which in many histories of the Revolutionary War, the capture of the fort is somewhat of a footnote. But if we think about what would have happened if the British had maintained control of Ticonderoga, which they easily could have if Arnold hadn't moved quickly and gotten up there, I think 3 weeks after Lexington and Concord, he was on the scene and taking over Ticonderoga. If the British had controlled Ticonderoga, their invasion in 1776, which the Patriots were just barely able to stop, would have been successful. Given the problem that George Washington was having down in New York at that time, I think that combination would have probably ended the war right there. So that was a huge moment for Benedict Arnold to hurry up to Ticonderoga and take over the fort. Certainly the expedition over the Main Mountains in 1775 showed off Arnold at his best as a leader, as someone devoted to the cause. Valcour Island, which I wrote a book about, again, very resourceful and courageous, and showed Benedict Arnold very willing to risk his life for the cause that he embraced. And then finally, the Battle of Saratoga, which for a long time he was denied the credit that he really deserves for winning the Battle of Saratoga. But I think historians now are coming around to the idea that he really was the key man in that very key battle of the Revolution.
Okay, those were the shining moments, and then we fast forward 3 years from Saratoga, and he defects. What do you feel was the ultimate reason that Arnold defected to the British side?
Well, I've thought a lot about that, John, and I think most historians have their favorite theories. Some say it was the money that the British paid him. They did pay him a fairly substantial amount of money. Some say it was his wife. He'd married Peggy Shippen, who's a loyalist young lady. and that she influenced him and pushed him into treason. Some say he was disgruntled over not getting the promotions he thought he deserved. Some say it was the French alliance, that he hated the French, and he was ticked off that America made an alliance with them. And my own answer for that question is simply, I don't know. I don't think, to me, none of those reasons is powerful enough to explain the 180-degree turn that he made to go over to the British. I think that as much as we could speculate about it, and we could say, well, it was everything, it was all those reasons, but that doesn't really explain anything. And I speculate in the book myself about he was somewhat of an adrenaline junkie, what we would call today an adrenaline junkie. He loved action. He was very good at it. And once he was wounded, he was out of action, and he began to think a little bit too much. I think that he was a narcissist. He liked to be at the center of everything and be making things happen. And by conspiring with the British, he was really put him in a position where he thought he was going to end the war, and it was going to be bring peace to America because of his treason. And maybe he sincerely thought that that was the right thing to do at that time. But I don't think really we're ever going to have a definitive answer as to why. And like I said, he was very much an enigma.
I think appropriate answer. Now, I do want to ask you, we'll have you on the show again next week to talk about other aspects of Arnold's life and career, but I wanted to ask Jack Kelly, the author, do you have any works in progress right now that you can tell us about?
Yeah, in addition to God Save Benedict Arnold, which is on the stands at the moment, I'm just finishing up a book called Tom Paine's War. I've been very immersed in that subject. Tom Paine, to me, is one of the really interesting characters of the Revolutionary era. He became the most famous writer in America in 1776 when he published Common Sense, which really pushed America towards independence. And what a lot of people don't know is that he then enlisted with the Pennsylvania militia, became a secretary to General Nathaniel Greene, marched with George Washington's army in the terrible retreat across New Jersey and into Pennsylvania, and then wrote what was probably the greatest pep talk of all time in the essay that began, "These are the times that tried men's souls." So his career, and I'd focus on that aspect of his career, it really joins together the two most iconic moments of the Revolution in the Declaration of Independence and in George Washington crossing the Delaware in December of 1776 and counterattacking against the Hessians in Trenton. Thomas Paine was really involved in both those and gives an interesting perspective on that a very crucial period of the war.
Do you have any target publication date?
Probably going to shoot for late this year or perhaps early part of 2026.
Great.
About a year from now.
Great. Meanwhile, I encourage everyone to read God Save Benedict Arnold and Valcour, both of which I think tell a lot of the Benedict Arnold story and very interesting. And also others of Jack Kelly's book. You can go to jackkellybooks.com to buy them. A reminder, our website is lakegeorgebattlefield.org. And again, thank you, Jack Kelly, for appearing on Lake George Battlefield Moments.
Oh, thank you, John. Great to talk to you.
Lake George Battlefield Moments, a production of the Lake George Battlefield Park Alliance, preserving our area's incredible history. For more on this topic, check out the Lake George Battlefield Park Alliance podcast, a weekly feature on Lake FM 93.5 FM and live streaming at lakefm.com. For more information, go to lakegeorgebattlefield.org and tune in every Saturday morning for Lake George Battlefield Moments.